The Galactic Council had been waiting for humans for almost a decade. Every race that reached the stars joined the Council within months except humanity. Earth's transmissions had stopped 3 years after first contact. Every invitation sent to them went unanswered. Every attempt to open communication failed. The galaxy had begun to whisper that maybe humanity was gone. But then one quiet morning, sensors in the Sol system lit up. The human fleet was awake again. Massive ships, thousands of them, emerged from silent orbit around Mars and Luna. They were unlike any the Council had seen. Black hulls, cold engines, and no visible insignia. Only a single message followed across the stars. We remember. Counselor Vrix of the Saran Empire leaned closer to the holographic feed. His scaled hand trembled as he watched the message repeat in every galactic frequency. What do they mean, we remember? He asked. No one had an answer. The Council had sent dozens of envoys over the years. None had returned. The official record said Earth was peaceful, curious, cooperative when first contacted. But then all at once humanity had turned silent, and now they were back with warships. In the dim council chamber, representatives from 50 species argued. Some called for peace, others for preemptive strikes. The humans had ignored every treaty, every alliance offer, and now they looked prepared for conflict. Vrix stared at the growing swarm of ships on the display. The sensors showed weapons charged, shields strong. No communication came, just silence, heavy and cold. Maybe they're scared, said Envoy Myron from the Aline Compact. Maybe they're defending themselves. Or maybe, growled a deep voice from the back, they remember what we did. The room froze. Everyone knew what the voice meant. The first contact mission, 12 years ago, had ended badly. Humans had asked the Council to stop mining a moon they called Europa. The Council refused. The mining went on. Then came the radiation accident. Over 1,000 humans died when one of the Council's harvesters exploded. The Council called it a tragic event. Humanity had called it murder. Vrix whispered, "We thought they forgave us." Outside, human ships began to move. Commander Aria Hayes stood on the deck of the Horizon Spear, the flagship of the Human Defense Armada. She had trained her entire life for this. The war was not declared, but every soul aboard knew it was coming. "Fleet ready, ma'am," said her second officer, Malik. Aria nodded, eyes fixed on the stars. "Transmit the message again." Malik hesitated. Still no reply from the Council. "Good," she said quietly. "Let them wonder." For 12 years, Earth had been rebuilding, hiding, preparing. Humanity had learned that the galaxy was not as peaceful as it looked. The Council ruled through fear, through control of technology, through silent threats. They called it unity, but humans called it empire. Aria had seen the evidence, the classified footage of the Europa mines, the explosions, the lies. Humanity's silence had been its shield. While the Council thought Earth had fallen quiet, humans were building fleets, forging alliances in secret, reverse engineering alien tech. Now, the time had come to show the galaxy what silence had been hiding. "Ma'am," Malik said again. "They're hailing us. The Saran fleet requests dialogue." Aria's lips curled into a thin smile. "Play it." The voice of Counselor Vrix filled the bridge. "This is the Galactic Council. Humanity, identify your purpose. Your warships have entered restricted space. We wish for peace." "Peace," Aria interrupted. "You broke peace when you buried our people under Europa's ice." There was silence across the channel. Then Vrix's voice strained. "That was an accident." "No," Aria said, her tone cold as vacuum. "It was a message. You told us we were small, forgotten, disposable." She leaned forward. "Now we send our reply." She cut the line. Across the void, human ships formed tight formations, wings of sleek destroyers, carriers, and dreadnoughts bristling with energy weapons. Yet no attack came. The fleet just waited. That was the worst part. The waiting. The silence. Inside the council chamber, fear spread faster than any weapon. Every race had legends about humanity. Bold, curious, unstoppable. The ones who burned their own world's atmosphere to reach the stars. The ones who never surrendered. And now they were here again, with the look of a species that remembered everything. Vrix whispered to his aide, "Prepare an emergency session. If they attack, the council will fall within days. The aide nodded shakily. What if they don't attack? Vrix turned back to the display. The human fleet hung motionless, hundreds of black ships against the stars. Then, he said, they're planning something worse. On the horizon spear, Arya walked through the command deck as stars glimmered beyond the glass. She could feel the tension, the entire species holding its breath. She opened a secure channel. The image of an old man appeared, Admiral Rains, her mentor. Everything ready? He asked. Yes, sir. Phase 1 begins at dawn. Rains nodded slowly. Remember, Commander, we're not here for revenge. I know, she said. We're here to make them remember who we are. The screen went dark. Outside, the human fleet turned toward the nearest council outpost, a silent silver moon at the edge of known space. Engines flared, the humans were coming, and the galaxy finally understood what humanity's silence had meant. The human fleet moved like a shadow across the stars. Silent, focused, unstoppable. The first destination was a small moon near the border of council space, a listening post built to monitor Earth. Every transmission that passed near Sol went through there. Humanity knew it. They had built it for that very reason decades ago, before the council took it over. Commander Arya Hayes stood in the center of the Horizon Spear's bridge. Her crew waited for her signal. No one spoke. The hum of the ship filled the silence. Any response from the outpost? She asked. None, ma'am, Malik said. They're ignoring our hails. Arya took a breath. Then they've already chosen a side. Should we engage? Malik's voice was careful, almost hesitant. Not yet, she said. Let's see if they remember who we are. She turned to her communication officer. Send the code. The officer typed a sequence that hadn't been used in years. An old Earth encryption key from before the blackout. The message went straight to the outpost's mainframe. For a few long seconds, nothing happened. Then the lights on the display flickered. A reply appeared. Code recognized. Welcome home. A wave of shock spread across the bridge. Malik stared at the screen. That station's been under council control for 10 years. Not completely, Arya said. We left ghosts behind. The screen shifted again, showing the face of an old man. His uniform was dusty, his hair white. Behind him, the outpost looked abandoned. Commander Hayes, the man said, smiling faintly. Took you long enough, Arya froze. Captain Weaver, you're still alive. Alive, hiding and waiting, he said. The council never knew we stayed. We kept the systems running, silent and dark. We've seen everything. The council built their empire on lies, and they think they erased us. But the ghosts of Earth never left. A deep silence filled the bridge. Then Arya said softly, You have our orders. Download all data on their fleets, patrols, and defenses. Transmit through the Shadow Network. Weaver nodded. Already done. One more thing, Commander. Be careful. The Council knows something is coming. They've built something big near the galactic core. A weapon. Arya's expression hardened. We'll deal with that soon enough. The screen went dark. Malik turned to her. What now? Now we show them that humanity doesn't hide anymore. Far away, in the Council's capital world of Zyrath, chaos filled the meeting hall. Dozens of voices shouted over one another, the air heavy with fear. Councillor Vrix slammed his clawed hand on the table. Silence. The room fell quiet. Vrix's scales gleamed under the blue light as he spoke. The humans have reactivated one of our border outposts. How is that possible? It was abandoned. A thin insectoid envoy clicked his mandibles nervously. Their technology has advanced too quickly. We underestimated them. You think? Vrix hissed. They were supposed to be primitive. When we last spoke, they barely had warp travel. Now they command fleets that could challenge ours. Another delegate, the tall crystalline being from the Mir Collective, spoke softly. Perhaps we should negotiate again, apologize, offer them membership. Apologize? Barked Vrix. To the species that built weapons that bend light? To the species that disappeared for a decade and returned ready for war? You think they want peace? The Mir delegate tilted its glowing head. Maybe not peace. Maybe respect. The word echoed through the chamber. Respect. The Council had ruled the galaxy for centuries through control and fear. Every race that joined them obeyed. But humans were different. They didn't obey. They learned. They adapted. And they remembered. Vrix's aide whispered, Sir, perhaps we should prepare the core weapon. Vrix hesitated. The core weapon was their last resort. a planet-sized superweapon powered by a dying star. It had never been tested. Using it might destroy half the galaxy's communications grid. Not yet, Vrick said finally. We need to know what the humans truly want. Back on the Horizon Sphere, the human fleet refueled near the old outpost. Every ship in the Armada was connected through the Shadow Network, a communication web invisible to the Council's sensors. Arya stood alone in her quarters, staring at a photo on her desk. It showed her family, taken before the Europa incident. Her younger brother had been one of the engineers on that moon. His body was never found. That was why she was here, why she had joined the Silence program, why humanity had waited so long to return. Malik entered quietly. "Ma'am, the fleet's ready for Phase 2, she nodded. "Good. The Council will be watching. Let's give them something to fear. What's our target?" "The relay station on Zirath's outer orbit. No casualties. Just darkness," Malik blinked. "Darkness? Cut their eyes, not their throats," Arya said. "They need to see that we can reach them anytime we want." Hours later, the Horizon Sphere slipped into stealth mode. The stars around it vanished into black. The fleet spread like shadows across the void. At Zirath's orbit, massive satellites pulsed with blue light, the Council's primary communication relays. Without them, the Council would be blind. Arya's voice came over the comms. "All units, begin Operation Eclipse." Human ships fired beams of light so thin they looked invisible. No explosions, no noise, just silence as one by one, the relays went dark. Across the Council's capital, screens flickered and died. Messages froze. Navigation failed. Panic spread. In the Council chamber, Vrick shouted, "Whoa, what's happening?" An aide screamed, "We're blind. The humans shut down the relay network." Vrick slammed his fist. "How? We didn't even detect their ships." No one answered. Outside, in the empty dark, the human fleet turned away. They didn't stay to gloat. They didn't speak. They just left, leaving silence and fear behind. On the bridge of the Horizon Sphere, Arya watched the stars. Malik looked at her uncertain. "They'll see this as a declaration of war." Arya shook her head. "No, it's a warning." She looked out the window, her reflection cold and distant. "Next time," she said quietly, "they'll listen when we speak." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council felt what humanity once did, helpless. The Council was in chaos. Without the relay network, communication between the star systems had slowed to a crawl. Orders arrived too late, fleets drifted in confusion, and panic spread through the capital world of Zirath. Counselor Vrick slammed his clawed hand onto the council table, his tail lashing behind him. "Find them," he roared. "Locate every human vessel and destroy it." But his aides shook their heads. "Impossible, sir," one said. "Their ships disappeared into hyperspace. Even the scanners cannot detect their trail." "Then we'll use the weapon," Vrick said, voice cold. "The core weapon. If we can't find them, we'll force them to reveal themselves." Across the galaxy, fleets of council ships mobilized. Thousands of warships left their star systems, converging toward Sol. They were armed, ready, confident. After all, the council believed it ruled all that. The humans could reach. They were wrong. Commander Arya Hayes watched the council's response unfold from the bridge of the Horizon Sphere. A secure feed from Captain Weaver showed Vrick's giving orders, shaking with anger. "Malik," Arya said, her voice calm. "They're going to strike hard and fast. But we're ready. We are?" Malik asked, doubt in his tone. "We can't match their numbers." Arya shook her head. "Not by conventional numbers. By strategy, by technology, and by allies we've kept secret for decades. Remember the Shadow Network? That was Phase 1. Phase 2 begins now." Malik nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "We've hidden allies." "Yes," she said. "Old friends, former colonies, rebel factions, those who suffered under the Council's rule. We've spent years preparing for this moment." The first signals came from the edges of known space. Ships that had vanished decades ago returned. Stealth vessels built by human engineers carrying crews trained in secret. They flanked the human fleet, invisible to Council scanners. Operation Eclipse, Arya said almost to herself, was only the warning. Counselor Vrix paced in the chamber. His mind raced. Humanity had crippled their communications and now moved faster than their sensors could track. Reports kept coming, fleets disappearing, patrols gone silent. Fear gripped the Council like a living thing. We must hit them first, Vrick said, voice low and urgent. We strike Sol before they bring more of their allies into play. The core weapon, a massive sphere suspended in orbit around Zirath's star, hummed with deadly energy. It was the size of a small moon, capable of annihilating entire fleets in a single pulse. Only the Council had the power to activate it. Vrix gave the order. Target the Sol system. Activate the core weapon. No hesitation. Back on the horizon sphere, Arya watched sensors showing the core weapon powering up. Its energy readings filled the display, a menacing blue glow. Malik frowned. They're serious, ma'am. They'll destroy us all if we stay. Arya's expression hardened. Then we'll make sure they don't get the chance. She turned to the comm officer. Prepare the warp decoy protocol. Engage the allies. All over the outskirts of the Sol system, hidden fleets materialized from hyperspace. Ships of all shapes, sizes, and designs joined the human armada. Former colonies, exiled engineers, even alien defectors, they answered the human call. The Council had assumed humanity fought alone. That assumption had been their biggest mistake. Rick stared at the screens as ships disappeared from his scanners. Impossible, he hissed. How did they? They never left, his aide said quietly. They were hiding, learning, preparing, and now they've returned. The core weapon fired. A beam of pure energy stretching across space toward Sol. Alarms screamed on every human ship, but Arya remained calm. Engage the countermeasure, she ordered. A pulse of energy erupted from human dreadnoughts and their hidden allies, intersecting the weapon's beam. Light clashed with light. Sparks danced in the void. Then, with a deafening silence, the core weapon's energy dissipated harmlessly into space. Vrix's jaw tightened. They blocked it? Arya smiled just faintly. They never expected humans to defend so well. And not alone. The first skirmish began. Council fighters clashed with human stealth ships. Plasma beams slicing the dark. Massive dreadnoughts dodging impossibly fast. Every human move seemed predicted yet unpredictable. Like a dance no one else could follow. Arya's voice rang through the fleet. Hold formation. Protect the outlying allies. And remember, this is only Phase 2. Phase 3 will remind them why they underestimated us for so long. Malik watched, awe and fear mixing. Ma'am, this is bigger than I imagined. Arya looked toward the stars. They missed every chance to meet us with respect. Now they'll remember us for more than just the mistakes of the past. The human fleet pressed forward. Shadows and allies surrounded Council forces. Every strike calculated to cripple without destroying, to warn without slaughter. And the Council, for the first time in history, understood that humanity had not only survived, they had learned, adapted, and grown stronger than anyone dared to imagine. Hours later, the Council regrouped, battered but alive. Vrix's pride and arrogance had been cut down in the span of a single day. They're everywhere, he said softly, and we don't even know their numbers. A young aide whispered, Sir, maybe we underestimated humanity. Vrix's eyes, sharp and calculating, glimmered with a new respect. No, he said, voice grim. We ignored them. That is far worse. Outside, in the quiet darkness of space, the human fleet paused. No cheers, no celebrations. Only readiness. Arya looked at Malik. This is only the beginning. Phase 3 will remind them why the galaxy should never forget humanity. Malik swallowed hard. And the rest of the galaxy? Arya's gaze turned forward toward the stars. They'll watch, and they'll learn. The stars stretched ahead, endless and bright. Humanity was back, stronger than anyone had imagined, and the galaxy had no choice but to remember. The galaxy was awake. After the first skirmish, whispers of humanity's return spread faster than any Council transmission. Fleets across the outer systems reported seeing black ships move like shadows, unseen yet unstoppable. The Council could no longer pretend Earth was silent. Humanity had returned, and the old mistakes could not be ignored. Commander Arya Hayes stood on the deck of the Horizon Spear, watching the stars blur as the fleet moved at faster than light speed toward the Council's central systems. Every ship, every ally, every weapon had a single purpose: remind the galaxy why humanity could never be underestimated. Malik approached cautiously. Ma'am, they're consolidating forces. Core worlds are sending fleets to intercept us. If we push forward, the casualties. Arya held up a hand. I know. But this isn't about revenge. It's about survival and justice. They must see the cost of ignoring us, of underestimating us. Malik nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Humanity had waited decades preparing, learning, and now, every move was deliberate. The first target was the communication hub orbiting Zirath Prime. The hub connected nearly every Council fleet, transmitting orders across light years. Without it, the Council would be blind. Operation Eclipse worked on the outlying stations, Arya said quietly. Now we take the heart. Stealth ships detached from the main fleet, weaving between patrols that still struggled to regain control. Human engineers had spent years reverse engineering Council technology. Every beam, every shield, every sensor hack was calibrated to perfection. The hub erupted in light as human plasma torpedoes struck precise points, disabling the central system. Alarms blared, but the Council's fleets couldn't respond fast enough. Communication was fractured. Panic spread like wildfire. In the Council chambers, Vrix's claws rattled against the table. "They've taken the hub," he shouted. "Do you understand what this means?" A young envoy stammered. "Sir, without communication, our fleets they'll fall into chaos." Vrix leaned back, his mind racing. Humanity had not only struck first, they had struck where it hurt the most. Meanwhile, Arya's fleet moved silently, shadows slipping past enemy patrols. From a distance, it looked like darkness itself had fallen across the Council systems. Every human ship carried crews who understood one rule: precision, not slaughter. They were here to make the Council respect humanity, not to exterminate. Yet even as the fleet moved forward, moral questions weighed on her mind. Decades of planning had been fueled by anger, yes, but also by responsibility. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson, but at what cost? "Malik," she said, "do you ever wonder if we're crossing the line?" He hesitated. We're fighting back, Commander. They started this war with silence and lies." Arya nodded slowly. "Yes, but even the darkest war needs a line. We don't become what we hate." The Council responded with everything they had. Interceptors and cruisers swarmed from the inner systems, converging toward Sol. Their numbers were overwhelming. Humans had to act smart. Arya gave the order. "Deploy the decoy fleet. Shadow network ships flank them. Lead them into the canyon of Therix." Hyperspace routes shifted. Council ships pursued the human decoys, only to find themselves trapped in asteroid canyons, unable to maneuver. Human stealth ships ambushed them, disabling engines and shields without killing the crews. Council ships drifted powerless, and humanity moved on, leaving them stranded. Malik watched, amazed. "We didn't lose a single ship." Arya's eyes remained on the stars ahead. "We can't afford losses. Every life counts. But we also can't stop until the Council learns the lesson fully." The moral tension among humans was mirrored in the Council. Reports of stranded fleets, communication blackouts, and sabotage spread fear and doubt. Councillor Vrix realized that humanity's tactics were precise and restrained, designed to hurt without destroying unnecessarily. "They fight differently than any other species," Vrix admitted to his aide. "They could annihilate us, but they don't. They make us fear. But they leave us alive." The aide looked puzzled. "Why would they do that?" Vrix's gaze hardened. "Because they're teaching us respect, and that is worse than death." By the time humanity's fleet reached the outskirts of the central star systems, the Council had lost control of nearly half their outer defenses. Human and allied ships moved like shadows, cutting off reinforcements and isolating key targets. Arya walked the deck, thinking of Earth and the generations who had built this moment. She remembered the families lost on Europa, the scientists who vanished, and the children who never saw the stars. This was not just war. This was history reclaiming its balance. "Malik," she said, "Phase 4 begins soon. Once we show the galaxy what we've prepared, no one will ever forget humanity again." Malik swallowed hard. "And what about them, ma'am?" "The Council." Arya stared into the void, her voice firm. "They'll learn that ignoring humanity was their greatest mistake." The human fleet moved forward. Shadows stretched across the stars, and in the heart of the Council's empire, fear spread like wildfire. Humanity was back, and this time the galaxy would remember their name. The core weapon loomed over Zirath Prime like a dying star waiting to explode. Its blue glow bathed the Council's central systems, a silent warning to anyone who dared challenge the galaxy's rulers. Every Council fleet in the inner systems had gathered, ready to defend it with everything they had. Commander Arya Hayes watched the display on the horizon sphere. This was the moment the galaxy had been waiting for, or fearing. "Malik," she said quietly. "They think this weapon makes them invincible." He looked at her, tension in his voice. "And if they're right?" "They're not," Arya said. Her eyes narrowed. "It's time they learn what humans can do when they fight smart, when they fight together, and when they never forget." The human fleet had circled the outer systems, invisible to most sensors, with allies in hyperspace ready to strike. Every step of this operation had been planned for decades. Every Council fleet movement had been predicted. "Commence Phase 5, Arya ordered. Shadow network ships begin distraction maneuvers. Decoy flares to draw their fleets into sectors Therix and Alara. Dreadnoughts prepare the pulse array." Malik swallowed. "Pulse array, ma'am?" The Council thought it was only a rumor. It's not. It's our turn to remind them why underestimating humans is a fatal mistake. Stealth ships streaked into Council space, striking sensors, jamming communications, and forcing fleets into ambush positions. Light flared in the void as human and allied ships disabled engines, shields, and weapons, leaving Council vessels trapped like insects in a jar. Councillor Vrix watched helplessly from Zirath Prime. His claws shook as reports flooded in. The core weapon had been designed to end any enemy in moments, but without support fleets and communications, it was useless. Every human move had anticipated his defenses. "They know our fleet positions," he said through gritted teeth. "They know our relay points. How?" A young aide dared to whisper. They planned for every outcome, for every move we ever made. How is that possible?" Vrix's eyes darkened. "They're humans. They never forget, and now they're here to make us pay for underestimating them." The horizon sphere and its dreadnought companions advanced silently. The pulse array activated, a field of energy bending the core weapon's output back toward the support systems. Council engineers scrambled to adjust the weapon's beam, but every calibration had already been anticipated. The core weapon fired. Blue light stretched across the void toward Sol, but instead of destruction, the energy reversed in a controlled feedback loop, disabling the surrounding fleets and leaving the weapon intact but powerless. "Status?" Arya asked. "All outer fleets disabled," reported Malik. "No casualties on our side." Arya's lips curled into a faint, sharp smile. "Phase 5 is complete. Now we remind them why humans never surrender." On Zirath Prime, panic had replaced arrogance. Council ships drifted, paralyzed, while human stealth ships flitted through patrols like shadows. Former colonies and allied fleets emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the core weapon and its protectors. The Council had underestimated not just Earth. They had underestimated every species that had once suffered under their rule. Vrix slammed his fists onto the Council table. "Stop them! Protect the core weapon!" But it was too late. Every defensive move had been countered. Every fleet trapped. Every escape route blocked. Humanity was everywhere at once, unseen, unrelenting, and merciless in precision, but restrained in violence. Arya watched the core weapon glow, feeling the weight of history behind her. She remembered the Europa disaster, the lives lost, and the silence humanity endured. Every calculation, every ship, every allied move was not revenge, it was justice, structured and intelligent. "Malik," she said softly, "they've built their empire on fear. Now they'll see what it feels like to face a species that never forgot, never surrendered, and never bowed." Malik nodded. "Do we destroy the weapon?" Arya shook her head. "No, we don't kill the galaxy. We show them the cost of arrogance. Let them see we can control destruction. Let them see respect." The pulse array emitted a final wave of energy, rendering the core weapon inert. Council engineers could not react fast enough. The fleets around the weapon were paralyzed, trapped in stasis fields designed by human engineers. Vrix stared at the display, his pride shattered. "Impossible. They could have destroyed us. Why didn't they?" A faint, chilling whisper came from his aide. "Because they're teaching us respect." The realization hit the Council like a blow. Humanity had returned not just for survival, but to make the galaxy remember its presence, its intelligence, and its power. They fought with discipline, morality, and unity, a combination no other species had mastered. On the bridge of the horizon sphere, Arya looked at the trapped Council fleets. She thought of the generations who had suffered, the silence they had endured, and the galaxy that had forgotten humanity's strength. They'll remember now, she said quietly. And hopefully, they'll never forget again. Malik smiled faintly. They won't, not after this. Arya turned to the stars ahead. Prepare Phase 6. The final act isn't about power. It's about the message. Humanity survived, humanity adapted, and humanity will not be ignored. The fleet moved forward, silent and unstoppable. And across the galaxy, for the first time in history, humanity had turned fear into respect, and the Council finally understood what it meant to underestimate them. The galaxy held its breath. After weeks of silent strikes, strategic ambushes, and precise demonstrations of power, humanity's fleet now orbited Zirath Prime. The Council's core weapon lay inert, its energy dissipated, while fleets across the systems remained trapped or paralyzed. Humanity had achieved what no one thought possible. They had returned not as victims, but as masters of strategy, unity, and restraint. Commander Arya Hayes stood on the deck of the Horizon Spear. Her gaze swept over the stars, calm and unwavering. The battle was not over, but the victory had already been won. Malik approached. They're requesting a parley. Counselor Vrix, he wants to meet, Arya nodded. About time. Prepare the channel. I want everyone to see that we return not for conquest, but for respect. The council chamber on Zirath Prime was tense. Counselor Vrix, his scales dulled from stress and shock, sat in silence. Every other delegate looked terrified and uncertain. They had underestimated humanity, and now they faced the consequences. A holographic feed flickered to life. Arya appeared in the center, her black uniform stark against the stars outside the Horizon Spear. Counselor Vrix, she said, her voice steady. You believed humanity would remain silent. You believed we would wait forever. You were wrong, Vrix's voice shook. Commander Hayes, why? You could have destroyed us. The core weapon, our fleets, anything you wanted. Why show restraint? Arya's eyes glinted. Because that is the difference. We are not your slaves nor your victims. Humanity survives by strength, by intelligence, by unity, and by knowing when to wield power and when to show mercy. We came not to destroy, but to remind the galaxy of one truth. Never underestimate humans. Silence filled the chamber. The weight of her words sank in like a tidal wave. For the first time, the council felt what it meant to face a species that had endured, adapted and mastered what they could not control. Outside, human ships remained in formation, an unyielding shadow over Zirath Prime. They did not fire. They did not gloat. They simply waited, showing that power without cruelty could demand respect stronger than any weapon. Council fleets, still trapped in stasis, were powerless. The core weapon could not be activated. Humanity had proven it could dominate not through destruction, but through intelligence, foresight, and unity. Vrix finally spoke, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of realization. We cannot ignore you anymore, Arya nodded. Good, that is the message. Humanity will not be silenced. Humanity will not be dismissed. And humanity will always remember. Back on Earth, transmissions flooded the planet. Humanity had returned to the stars not for glory or conquest, but for survival, justice, and the principle that no species should be underestimated. Civilian and military populations alike cheered silently across continents. They had waited for this day, trained for this day, and finally, the galaxy had taken notice. Captain Weaver appeared on the feed from the old outpost. Commander Hayes, the galaxy will never forget this. The council will change. Because of what you've done. Arya smiled faintly. Not because of me, Admiral. Because of every human who endured the silence, the loss, and the struggle. They waited. They learned. And now they lead. In the weeks that followed, the council convened emergency sessions. Fleets were freed, communications restored, and new treaties were drafted. The core weapon remained inoperable, a reminder of the power humanity wielded without cruelty. Counselor Vrix, humbled, spoke before the assembly. We have misjudged humanity. We assumed they were weak, silent, and obedient. They are none of these. They are intelligent, adaptable, and united. The galaxy must respect them or suffer the consequences. The room fell silent. Every race, every delegate understood the truth in his words. Humanity's return had not only changed the balance of power, it had changed the very concept of respect in the galaxy. On the Horizon Spear, Arya watched the stars. The fleet was ready, but not for war. It was ready to protect, to explore, and to ensure humanity's voice was never ignored again. Malik approached. "What now, Commander?" Arya looked forward toward the endless void of stars. "Now we teach the galaxy a new rule. Humanity is not to be dismissed. We will meet, we will speak, and we will defend, but we will never bow." Malik smiled. "They'll remember this forever." "Yes," Arya said, her voice calm but firm. "And so will we." The fleet turned toward the outer systems, carrying with it a message no one could ignore. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The stars stretched endlessly ahead. Silence, once humanity's shield, had become their strength. The mistakes of the past, the lost lives, the broken treaties, the ignored warnings, had forged a species that now commanded respect not through fear, but through the power of resilience, unity, and intelligence. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity finally was home among the stars.